Hello friends, welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Dr. Hanif Qureshi, IPS, Commissioner of Police, Faridabad City, Haryana. We are studying the paper Internal Security Management, and in this module, we look at the current trends and challenges relating to the left-wing extremism. As you know, that the left-wing extremism became a challenge for the Indian state after the famous Naxalbari event in West Bengal. The initial phase of Naxalism was well contained by the government. Afterwards, Naxalism did find a way into the social fabric of the underdeveloped regions of India. At present, large parts of the country are affected by Naxalism. Some areas face a high number of deaths, both civilians and security forces, while other areas are not affected as noticeably. There is a need to understand the strategy and influence of the Naxals if this threat has to be contained. The Government of India has an integrated policy to deal with Naxals where it coordinates the efforts of the state governments and deploys its own plans as well. In the process, there are many challenges faced. We will try to understand these challenges and also consider what a citizen's role can be in this context. Let us look at some of the learning outcomes which are desired. After completing this module, you will be able to analyze the trends of Naxal related violence over the past several decades. You will be able to understand the current geographical spread of the movement across India as well as in the specific affected states. You will also be able to learn the linkage of LWE linked groups with other organizations. You would also know about the current policy of the government to combat the Naxal threat and the challenges faced in doing so. You will also learn about what a common citizen can do to counter LWE. Let us look at the trends of Naxal activity first. We look at the form of violence the extremist groups have used and how it has changed over time across Indian states. As you know, the Naxal movement is spread across most of central India and is actively trying to make inroads into south and northeast India. The number of violent attacks by Naxals was at high levels in the recent past, especially in 2010. Many of you would remember that in the February of 2010, about 24 members of security forces were killed when the Naxals attacked a camp at Silda in West Bengal. April 2010 saw another landmine attack in Odisha where suspected Maoist rebels killed at least 10 policemen. About 76 personnel of the CRPF were killed in a major attack in Dantewada district of Chhattisgarh. Such violent incidents are reported from other states also. On 29 June, as many as 26 CRPF personnel were killed in Narayanpur in Chhattisgarh by armed squads of Naxalites. While these are the major incidents, many more Naxal violence incidences of a smaller magnitude have been reported from parts of several states. These states are Jharkhand, Odisha, Maharashtra, Andhra, West Bengal and Chhattisgarh. An analysis of the Naxal incidents across India, it shows a declining trend over last several years. If you look at the figures of 2011, there were about 1760 incidents which fell down to 1000 incidents in subsequent years. The number of civilian deaths in Naxal related incidents is also decreasing from 2011 to the present day. The increased capability of the security forces has also resulted in the reduced number of security personnel killed in action. But the number of encounters with the Naxal groups which the police has or the paramilitary forces have, they have more or less remained the same. Rather, they have seen a slight rise in recent years. This shows that there has been no let up in the drive against the Naxal groups and the resistance offered by them remains at almost same levels. A significant problem across the Naxal affected areas was the frequent incidents of looting of arms from the security personnel. There have been armed raids by the Naxals on state police armories, where significant number of arms and ammunition were looted. For instance, in February 2008, hundreds of armed Maoists simultaneously they raided several police establishments in Nayagarh district in Odisha, killing 15 people. Of them, there were 13 policemen also, and from there they looted a large number of arms and ammunition. This was one of the most daring attacks carried out, where the town was blockaded from all sides and police stations were attacked simultaneously. In other instances, arms have been snatched from individual policemen or other security forces members. Such attacks have also reduced in number for the last several years. For instance, in 2011, there were 67 such attacks, but in 2015, 18 attacks were there. Therefore, though the number of such attacks has come down, the attacks by Maoists have been of a very high intensity and also brutal. One such powerful attack was made on a convoy of vehicles in Jagdalpur district of Chhattisgarh in May 2013 that resulted in the death of 28 people. Among those killed were a former minister of Chhattisgarh and a former Lok Sabha member, and some other political personalities were there. This indicates that Naxals carefully select a target which is of high value and has less security cover. This particular convoy was an ideal target because of the presence of many high profile leaders in one place, and the place of attack was selected which was a vulnerable area. The strength of Naxals has witnessed a shrink in the number of middle and top level leaders due to killings or arrests or surrender in Odisha, Bihar, Chhattisgarh and Jharkhand. A number of such arrests have been made in the recent past. Similarly, if you look at some other indicators of Naxal activity, most of them show a decrease over the last 5 or 6 years. For instance, the number of arms snatched and the number of attacks on police personnel have decreased in the last several years. Apart from concentrating on violent attacks, the Naxals involve themselves in a number of other activities also. They look for ways to increase their spatial presence and spatial spread in the Red Corridor and beyond. The Maoists wish to keep the people cut off from the mainstream happenings. The schools are attacked by Naxals as education brings about a spirit of inquiry and also makes children more employable. Such empowerment of the local population is naturally disliked by the Maoists, as it is looked upon as a threat to their existence and ideology. The Naxals also try to damage the infrastructure projects such as bridges or roads to further enable the isolation of people. Lately, the Naxals have tried to infiltrate into urban areas. In urban areas, they usually start with the propaganda and then they try to mobilize people. They have also floated front organizations. These organizations espouse the cause of the Naxals. The government has identified 128 organizations across the country which may be front organizations operating for the CPIM, that spearheading the Naxal insurgent movement. According to IB, some of these organizations are present in 16 states. This includes those states which are unaffected or almost unaffected by Naxal violence or influence. For instance, states like Gujarat, Haryana, Punjab and Delhi have not seen any violent Naxal activities, but these organizations do have a presence here also. Subsequent to an incident of industrial unrest in Gurgaon, which was the violence at the Maruti Manesar plant, a number of front organizations of the banned CPI Maoists, these organizations, they staged demonstrations against the management of the company and government. The organizations included several of them such as the Mehnatkash Mazdoor Morcha, Democratic Students Union, People's Democratic Front of India and the Committee for Release of Political Prisoners. This indicates the potential and the threat of Naxal activity which may arise in future. Now, let us look at the spread of the Naxal movement. As you know, the Naxal movement originated from a small village Naxalbari in West Bengal and spread to vast stretches of land over the last several decades. It has formed alliances with a variety of other organizations within India as well as those overseas, particularly in Bangladesh, China, and Pakistan. In the process, Naxal groups have gone through many changes of division in their ranks as well as their amalgamation. If we consider the geographical presence and spread of the Naxal activity, it becomes apparent that the Naxals mainly operated intensively in three states of India: Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, and Orissa. The number of deaths relating to Naxal violence in 2015 have been the highest in these three states: 110 in Chhattisgarh, 56 in Jharkhand, and 28 in Orissa. But the movement has a substantial presence in few other states also, such as West Bengal, Bihar, Telangana, and Maharashtra. If we look at the level of violence in West Bengal, it reveals that in 2008-2011, the level of violence were high. But after that, the level of violence has come down. If this trend continues in the future, it will be an indication of a mature handling of the Naxal issue by the Government of India. The situation in Bihar indicates that violence levels have been declining over the last several years. However, the casualties suffered by security forces are higher than those suffered by the Maoists. This indicates that more efforts are required for training of police and security forces. Of course, a combination of policies by the government as well as the operations by the security forces are going to achieve the kind of results Andhra Pradesh has seen, which is a very successful example. Andhra Pradesh has seen reduced levels of violence since 2007, but violence still does continue in isolated pockets. AP has not yet achieved freedom from Naxal threat and will have to continue with the efforts in fighting the Naxals in appropriate ways. The reduction of levels of violence in recent years in Andhra Pradesh has been truly phenomenal, but it is not zero. It has been reported that the left-wing extremists have successfully managed to penetrate into some of the states of the northeast and also South India. Though the influence of the Naxals is mostly felt in rural and tribal areas, they continue to try to penetrate into few of the urban areas. In 2013, Maoists had set up support bases in Upper Assam and some of the tribal areas in the hilly interiors. The presence of Maoists has been seen in some districts of Assam such as Tinsukia, Dibrugarh, Sivasnagar, Golaghat. The Maoists have also been trying to extend their presence into some of the South Indian states, especially Tamil Nadu, Kerala, and Karnataka. As far as the urban areas are concerned, some Maoist activities have been reported from places like Delhi, the National Capital Region, Mumbai, Chennai, Hyderabad, Rourkela, Bhubaneswar, Guwahati, and Chandigarh. The mode of operation in these places is mostly through front organizations. There is now what some authors have described as the Red Corridor. It stretches from the upper Gangetic plains near Nepal and comes down to the plains of Bihar and the forested hills along the east coast of India and stretches down south into Odisha and as far as Tamil Nadu. The size of the area of this corridor is almost the geographical size of the other two insurgency affected areas of India, that is the northeast and the state of Jammu Kashmir. The number of districts affected by Naxal activity is nearly a third of the total number of districts in India. It was perhaps due to the vast geographical spread and the intensity of Naxal attacks that prompted the then Prime Minister of India, Dr. Manmohan Singh, to describe the insurgency in 2006 as the most serious internal security threat that India has ever faced. The left-wing extremists have linkages with other organizations also. For instance, the CPI Maoist is reported to have linkages with some northeast insurgent groups such as the NSCN. It has also supported the J&K terrorist groups through its frontal organizations, though no direct linkages have been established as of now. The CPI Maoist is also a member of Coordination Committee of Maoist Parties of South Asia. This organization includes a number of radical groups from our neighboring countries such as Bangladesh, Nepal and Sri Lanka. There also have been reports of a Naxalite politician nexus. In some states in India, some Naxalites have formed opportunistic linkages with certain leaders of political parties. The Naxalites may help the political leaders during elections by providing them with muscle power and grassroots workers needed for campaigning. The obligation is returned by the political persons by arranging for logistics or helping Naxalite sympathizers. If the politician happens to be in power, he may also influence government policies towards the Naxalites. The CPI Maoist has also connections with the Maoists of Nepal, especially in West Bengal and Bihar. As the communists are fairly powerful in Nepal, the links are not limited to sympathy alone, but they involve active partnership in terms of training of men and providing safe havens and facilitation and procurement of arms and explosives. Ranjit Kumar Gupta, who was the police commissioner of Kolkata, has elaborated in this connection. He says that one of the two Indian Maoist parties, the Association of CPM Maoist, has been mainly through the then Maoist Communist Center on the Indian areas bordering Nepal. Let us look at some of the challenges faced in countering insurgency. And first, let us understand the policy of the Government of India as well as the Government of States to deal with the Naxal threat. Then, we will look at the challenges faced in the process by the respective governments. As far as the policy to combat left-wing extremism is concerned, the Government of India deals with extremism in an integrated manner, which means combining various issues involved. The various efforts are in the direction of security, development, ensuring rights and entitlements of local communities, improvement in governance and public perception management. Amongst these, some of the issues are largely left to states. For instance, law and order is a state subject as per the Constitution of India. Thus, the states have to train and equip their police forces. The central government closely monitors the situation and it also supplements the efforts of state governments. For instance, the Government of India provides the central armed police forces, the BSF, CRPF, SSB, and recently they have formed the commando battalions for resolute action or the Cobra battalions under the CRPF. And they have set up a counter-insurgency and anti-terrorism or CIAT schools. The central government has also formulated a scheme of police modernization. Help in terms of addition of technology such as GIS based maps and helicopters are being provided for anti-Naxal operations. The idea is to enhance the capacity of the state governments to work effectively in anti-Naxal operations. A number of review and monitoring mechanisms have been established by the Government of India in this regard. These include monitoring of the situation on a regular basis at various levels by the Ministry of Home Affairs. Meetings of chief ministers of the worst affected states are called, such as Chhattisgarh, Telangana, Odisha, Maharashtra and Jharkhand. Progress of the operations is reviewed there. There is also a standing committee of the chief ministers of the states which has been formed. This committee seeks states' inputs towards a coordinated policy. Meeting under the chairmanship of the Union Home Minister, this committee works on political, security and developmental fronts. Another organization created by the centre is the Empowered Group of Officers, which is headed by the member secretary of Niti Aayog, which was the former planning commission. This group consists of officers drawn from the development ministries and oversees effective implementation of development programs in the affected areas. Similarly, an effective empowered committee was set up under the Additional Secretary Left Wing Extremism in May 2015 to monitor the progress of the efforts made by various ministries. But definitely In spite of these efforts, there are certain problems which are faced by the government in countering the Maoist insurgency. Let us look at these problems. The Maoist insurgency continues to exist and also sometimes grow in certain pockets. There are a number of reasons for this, and they range from lack of coordinated response to underassessment of threat posed by the left-wing extremism, the lack of governance in Naxal affected areas. For a long time, the Maoist insurgency was not viewed as a serious internal security problem. It was viewed as a local law and order issue. The Maoists have continued to exert influence in remote and inaccessible rural and tribal areas across central India. Correspondingly, the lack of governance in these areas have inadvertently helped the cause of the Naxals. This resulted in a security and development vacuum. That's the reason Maoists find it very easy to set up something of a parallel system of administration in these areas. But during the last several years, the governments have realized the gravity of the situation, and now they see it as an impediment to nation building process. Therefore, the government has initiated several policies and programs to address the security and development deficits in these areas. These measures have shown results to a certain extent. If we analyze the violence related incidents, which we have discussed that they show a declining trend over the last several years. But clearly, this is a difficult and a slow process, as it involves multiple stakeholders and social processes which take a long time to mature. When the Naxal movement first arose in the present form in the 60s and 70s, particularly after the events of Naxalbari in West Bengal, it was relatively easily crushed. The situation has changed for the worse after consolidation of various groups in 2004 to form the unified CPI-M. The Naxals have reaffirmed their commitment to a protracted armed struggle, and they are now much more deeply embedded than before in society, and this is especially true in states like Jharkhand and Chhattisgarh. It is difficult to gauge the exact extent of penetration of Naxals in deep areas in their interiors, but some of the ethnographic accounts are available. For instance, Alpa Shah in her works Markets of Protection and In Search of Certainty in Revolutionary India, in these two works, she has shown the extent to which Maoists are now embedded in the very fabric of Indian society. In these circumstances, repression or the action of security forces alone is unlikely to work. Some of India's political leaders, such as a former Congress Chief Minister of Madhya Pradesh, Digvijay Singh, has argued against the emphasis placed on conventional security measures as an effective way to handle the Naxal threat. This line of thinking intends to meet the challenge by security force action, but well supplemented by action on the development agenda. Another challenge faced is the problem of the displaced people who have had to relocate due to development projects, either because of dams such as Narmada or because of other large power projects. The number of people displaced over the history of independent India ranges from 20 million to as many as 60 million if we consider the various reports. These numbers are certainly very substantial, and it has been felt by many observers that those who have been affected by displacement have not usually been adequately compensated or rehabilitated. The failure of the state in providing adequate care and rehabilitation packages has been a major irritant in dealing with the problem of unrest in the affected populations. Resentment may grow in the local population because genuine grievances being raised by the people through voluntary agencies are sometimes branded as extremist actions. For instance, movements such as Visthapan Virodhi Jan Manch at Kalinganagar or the Bastar Sambhag Kisan Sangharsh Samiti in Chhattisgarh opposed displacement as a result of development projects like the Bodh Ghat Dam. These were considered by many authorities as Naxalite or Maoist. Independent evidence suggests that these organizations have raised genuine concerns and they are not Naxal organizations. But it is possible that there may be Naxal sympathizers among them, and Naxals in general may support these organizations in an effort to win them over. Now let us look at what a common citizen can do to prevent Naxalism and how to deal with it. Though the government has a comprehensive agenda to deal with extremism, there are some actions which an ordinary citizen too can take. First, the citizen can condemn the violence of the extremist groups in any social fora available. Secondly, the citizen can sensitize other citizens about the flawed ideology of the Maoist and how it acts against the idea of a united and a progressive country. Third, the citizen can support the democratic form of government as laid down in the constitution against the violence based oppressive nature of the Maoist ideology. Now, let us summarize what we have learnt in this module. In this module, we looked at the geographical spread of the Naxal movement across the states of India and saw the extent of various types of violence perpetrated by them. Apart from the violence, the Naxals spread their ideologies and operate through certain front organizations. They also have linkages with many other organizations. The government has a policy to plan security forces operations as well as a development oriented agenda for the Naxal affected areas. The state's efforts are augmented by the central government in this regard. We also looked at the challenges faced in countering the threat of Naxals and how we can overcome them. Thank you for watching.